Hello and welcome to a special presentation of In the Money Media. A little bit more Kentucky Derby coverage. A little bit more. Who am I kidding? A lot bit more. We're just getting started on the road to the Derby, but we have a concept we've used the last few years on our podcast, and we're going to debut this video version of it now. I'm talking about Kentucky Derby buy, sell, hold. Peter Thomas Fornatale with you back in the Brooklyn bunker. Happy to be joined by Jonathon Kinchen. JK, what's up?
What's going on, PTF? Yes, we are. We're here to do a little buy, sell, hold. Now we understand that this is a little bit after the pools have closed, but there's obviously a lot of opportunities to get involved, whether you're out in Las Vegas or internationally, if you want to get involved in some of these prices. And then there will be another future pool coming up pretty quick, so it's at least something to keep your eye on and something to kind of guide you through some of these Derby preps.
In the old days, this was pool one. Kind of interesting now that they've expanded it, and it's the third pool that they do. And yeah, for me, it's more of an exercise. It's a guide. It's like looking at football prices early in the week, almost like from an academic purpose. This is what the market is thinking. Maybe we can get some clues that are going to help us in our actual wagers a little bit later on. And like you said, if you're in Vegas or in civilized places where they let you bet ante-post, maybe you can get on a little bit sooner. Let's talk about the horse JK that is the favorite of individual entries and the obvious favorite really for the Derby at this point, given the massive speed figure, given the fact that he's going to be named 2-year-old champion this year. He closed at 8-1 in this pool 3 of the Derby future wager, available at a much more appealing 12-1 internationally. Fierceness. Now, you've tipped your hand on this horse. You already said you thought he might be running for a Triple Crown when it comes to Belmont and Saratoga in a few weeks. But what do you think about this price right now? Is Fierceness for you a buy, a sell, or a hold?
Well, I don't think it's crazy, right? I mean, I'd imagine he'll have two preps. If he wins both of those preps, the way that he appears he might, considering what he did as a 2-year-old, the numbers he ran as a 2-year-old, and just the normal progression you expect from 2 to 3. If he runs those numbers in those two races, winning the Holy Bull and the Florida Derby, he'll be 5-2 on the day. And so getting that 8-1 now isn't the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. Now you still have to worry. They're 4-legged animals, and sometimes injuries or illness or changing plans can come into play. Ask his old time stablemate, his big brother, Uncle Mo. Big brother, not by family, but by the fact that they both are owned by Rapoli, trained by Todd Pletcher. And things can happen, but I'm not really that upset about the 8-1. In all fairness.
He's a spiritual brother, and he's a soft buy for JK. Let's talk about a horse that has a massive, what they call RIC, discrepancy between the U.S. future pools and the international ones. That's Sierra Leone. This horse closed as short as 13-1, getting some wise guy vibes in future pool 3. Still available at 33-1 internationally, JK. 13-1. How do you treat Sierra Leone?
Yeah, I mean, this is a sell for me. I mean, I think that a lot of times people get too excited about these late running types where they look a little flashy, and then you get that ridiculous opinion that, oh, this horse is going to love a 1.25 miles based on the way he was closing, going 1.125 miles, and it just never seems to really work out that way. Like I said in the two early top 10 that we did last week or a couple weeks ago, I want to see Sierra Leone be a little bit more forward in terms of the type of horse that can win the Kentucky Derby. The other issue with Sierra Leone is that, the Remsen has not been a great producer of horses to run well in the Kentucky Derby. I think a horse that's ready to win at 1.125 miles at the end of their 2-year-old year doesn't necessarily transition into a horse that wants to win at 1.25 miles in the first Saturday in May. So this would definitely be a sell for me, a little bit too hypish for me, a little bit too much. I hope this horse works out, when conversely, Fierceness, we know how good Fierceness is. And really, if he just does what he's been doing, he's a likely winner of the Kentucky Derby. Sierra Leone has to improve, has to get faster, has to change his style, blah, 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 blah.
Up next on the dance card, JK, is Dornick. This horse, of course, full brother to last year's Derby winner, closed at 15-1 domestically in Pool 3, available at 20-1 overseas. This is the horse, of course, that beat Sierra Leone last time. Interesting that his price is bigger on that basis, though I suppose the track was seemingly favoring the inside a little bit, and that's probably part of the reason for the blue sky on Sierra Leone as well. He did probably overcome the prevailing way that the track was playing. Anyway, let's get back to Dornick. Is he a buy, a sell, or a hold at odds of 15 to 1?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer him over Sierra Leone, that's for sure. And I think for a couple of reasons. One is that Dornick is a little bit more of a forwardly placed type, which is a style that I like, and I think that not only do I like, I think that most people will agree does well in the Kentucky Derby. I don't remember the stat, but leading at the eighth pole, the stat's crazy for the amount of Derby winners that when they turn for home, they get to that eighth pole, they have an eighth of a mile left in the race. The winner comes from whoever's in first place at the eighth pole. Just how it is. It's not a closer's race. It's a forward race. Dornick has shown that he can be a little bit closer. He does have some figures. He just needs to improve like he's been improving. And I think that he could kind of get himself into the mix. He does have those Remsen stats to deal with, but I do think he makes a little bit more sense. I just need less from him than I'd need from Sierra Leone.
Rich Strike would like to have a word with that leading at the eighth pole stat, JK.
Well, how many races did he win after that?
I knew that was coming. I had to set you up for it. And while I don't fully agree with you about the Remsen being an unproductive race, always we did see a couple of years ago both Zandon and Mo Donegal go on to good things. I will say this: when I look at the form of last year's Remsen and I look at the form of last year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile, I'm leaning towards the Breeders' Cup Juvenile as the key piece of form, and that leads us to our next horse that just has, I don't know, JK, as an old school horse player, when you look at the PP cut of a horse like Locked, and you see that big fast second race, and you see that really fast Breeders' Cup Juvenile, granted in behind Fierceness, doesn't he just look like a horse that's supposed to move forward over that? I think he's kind of exciting. He's 18 to 1. Interestingly, this is one where internationally they're keeping him very close. He's actually shorter internationally, 16 to 1. That 18 to 1 Locked for me feels a little biased. I'm not going to lie. What do you think about Locked?
Well, you'd like to think that Locked is going to likely dodge Fierceness, right? In his Derby prep path. He also has that good race at Keeneland. Todd has often, if he has a horse that's run well at Keeneland as a 2-year-old, he'll usually send that horse on that path to run back on that racetrack. So I would imagine, and I haven't even read this, would imagine that Locked is going to go the kind of, the bluegrass route. If that's the case, you think Locked wins a prep, wins the bluegrass, he'll be right there in the mix. What's he going to be? 8 to 1 on the day. If Fierceness kind of does what Fierceness does, you get another Bob Baffert runner, which it seems with the news yesterday of Baffert dropping his appeal. It seems that could lead to him being able to have horses run in the Kentucky Derby. So I think that Locked could probably go off at 8 to 1, 9 to 1, 10 to 1. Does the 18 to 1 move you? I'm not really crazy about him from a future standpoint, but I do think he's very interesting as a horse. I just don't like that price.
Let's talk about Track Phantom up next. This horse made some noise in the Lecomte this past weekend, winning in wire-to-wire fashion. This is another one, interestingly, that the Pool 3 price of 18 to 1, greater than what he's available at internationally, 14 to 1. I don't know. This horse was able to win wire-to-wire again. The circumstances are going to be so different. What do you think at 18 to 1? Buy, sell, or hold?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, sneak peek, this week's Lanes In Legacy of the Week, a son of Quality Road, Track Phantom. Look, you win the Gun Runner, you win the Lecomte, you got to get a little excited. You got a Hall of Fame trainer in your corner. Another one that I'm probably not crazy about the price. What's Track Phantom going to do if he goes on to win the Risen Star and the floor and the Louisiana Derby? What price is he going to be? Based on his speed figures, he's probably still just a little bit too light. He's going to have to get a little bit faster and to be able to kind of be in the conversation with a Fierceness. But I mean, he's trending in the right direction with the right trainer. I think he's a very interesting horse, and I'm not crazy about the price. I would hold on Track Phantom just to kind of see where he's at. I feel like you're going to probably get pretty close to that on the day, unless he just runs the table down in Louisiana.
Take one quick moment to point out that we're grateful to our sponsors, the Pegasus World Cup Betting Challenge, and our friends at Gulfstream Park. Huge weekend this weekend there with the Pegasus happening. That contest, a phenomenal deal for players with $50,000 added to the pot and 5/6 of the money that you put up your live bankroll. That gives you an opportunity to walk away with more money than you came with for sure. For more information about that, check out pwcbc.com and be sure to pay attention to the extra podcasts we have on the Tropical Turf Pick 3 on every racing day on the weekend at Gulfstream. Friday, Saturday, Sunday this weekend. Going to be a lot of fun. Check that out wherever you get your podcasts. In the Money Media, In the Money Players podcast, the place to go to find that. Let's move on to a horse, JK, that I know you wanted to talk about and one that you've had a fondness for. We're talking about Timberlake. This horse closed at 30-1 in Pool 3, available at 25-1 internationally. When it comes to his chances in the Kentucky Derby, are you looking to buy, sell, or hold his chance of bringing Sexy back?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that he's a buy for me. A lot of things have to happen, but he's got a foundation, right? He ran what 5 times in his 2-year-old year. So coming back a little bit late, kind of getting what one might consider a late start to his 3-year-old year. I'm not overly concerned. I mean, this is a horse that I singled and felt was the winner of that very fast Breeders' Cup Juvenile until Fierceness jumped up and ran off the screen. But I still think that he ran well enough in a very fast race to suggest that possibly with some time to grow up and some rest and some relaxation, and then to come back for a trainer in Brad Cox who has won this race before, for the most part. I think that Timberlake could definitely take a step forward, and you're getting paid to find out. Now, look, he could have another setback, or he could end up not really being the same horse that he was as a 2-year-old. That happens quite often with these precocious 2-year-olds, but he also has a right to be a good horse moving forward. He's an into mischief, so there's a lot pointing in his direction. And I think at 30-1, Timberlake shows up in a prep race and runs a 104 buyer and wins by 6. Suddenly that 30-1 is now cut in half to 15-1 or lower.
Yeah, something you'd want to have on side at that point for sure. A couple more horses at bigger prices to talk about. Just want to let you know, we come on here, we give our opinions. We want to hear your opinions. Drop them in the comments. Let us know what you thought the value was of future Pool 3 or who you think is going to win this year's Kentucky Derby. If you're listening, it's very easy. People will say, I heard you. I'm not on YouTube, like as if it's some mystical thing. Just go to YouTube, look up the video, put your comment right in there. We want to hear what you have to say as well. Next horse that we want to talk about, El Capi. JK, this horse ran on debut and was an extremely impressive winner. And what I really liked about this, as I've mentioned elsewhere in our programming, I really believe Rick Dutrow when he says the horse showed that speed, the horse did that on his own, much more so than on the training. He's now been put on an advanced program in the Dutrow barn in terms of really trying to get this horse ready to repeat or improve on that effort second time out. Gosh, if he does so, based on the figure he ran on debut, this one could be right in the mix. Yet he closed at 33-1 in Pool 3, available at 40-1 international. Lee, El Capi, is he a buy, a seller, or a hold?
For me, I think he's a buy. I think he's interesting, right? It's Rick Dutrow's world. We're living in it. He obviously, came back with a fury with White Abario winning the Whitney and the Breeders' Cup Classic. He's always been heard of, to me. I've always heard that he's just this great horseman, right? Even because he was involved, his heyday was prior to my full involvement, right? So I have to kind of take that secondhand from a lot of people like Angel Cordero, whose opinions I respect immensely. So when it comes to a situation when you have developing a young horse, I trust people that are considered good horsemen. And I think that there's an opportunity for him to do that. He's a McLean's Music, but that's not necessarily an issue for me. We never really got to see what McLean's Music was going to do. Cloud Computing won the Preakness, so it's not as if the pedigree should be an issue. I will say this, though. It feels as if this is like a little Big Brownish, right? Like kind of taking this really fast horse and kind of a special type of horse and just progressing right along. And if he goes on the same path that Big Brown did, I could see this horse definitely being in the mix. He ran a fast number first time out, and we'll see what he does when he shows back up. Kind of similar to Timberlake in that I think that there's some meat on this bone if you want to take it.
Certainly an interesting long shot. And for as far as Dutrow's credentials go, all you need to know, JK, and all the international audience needs to know is when Bobby Frankel would ship a horse into a place where he didn't have his own string, and where Dutrow had a string, he'd put his horses with Dutrow to look after them until he and the team got to town. That's a pretty ringing endorsement of Dutrow as horseman. One more we're going to talk about, and I get hungry when I talk about this horse because I think of the restaurant and all our great meals in Vegas, and the times I've been able to get in the West Village, rare as they are. Special place. I'm not sure if the restaurant is what gives Carbone his name or not, but this horse run a couple of times, showed some promise. 36-1 in Pool 3. Interestingly, JK couldn't even find a price on this one internationally. Doesn't really seem to be on their radar. You buying, selling, or holding Carbone?
Yeah, I think it's just interesting, right? Another one of those horses, the horses at the top of the market outside of Fierceness, I just don't really see a ton of value there, right? Because you kind of know who they are. The market knows who they are. There's not a lot of speculation there. You're just kind of saying, oh, that horse is that horse. Let's see what we can get here. I think Carbone is at least interesting, right? He's a Matoli, trained by Steve Asmussen. I've always found that trainers who end up with talented offspring of horses they trained to be kind of interesting. They're very familiar with the pedigree. They're familiar with the horse. And it feels like this is one that's kind of traveling in the right direction, right? And he's winning. Anyone who's winning these kind of big pursed races at Oaklawn Park, I think is interesting as well. So I think he does offer a little bit of value.
You won at Churchill on debut, won at Oaklawn, both wire to wire. Interesting pedigree. It doesn't scream mile and a quarter, but in the hands of Steve Asmussen, certainly one to watch. Sounds like you're at least a soft buy on Carbone.
Yeah, I would say it a soft buy. I wouldn't say it's an al dente buy.
We got to get to if we can only get in, we got to get to back to Carbone in the city at this point, since I don't think either of us is going to be in Las Vegas anytime soon. But that's the topic for another podcast, another video. Really appreciate you coming on here, JK. Appreciate everybody who participates in the Money Media, wherever you get your podcast. Please subscribe to our channel, click the bell, do all those fun things. We want to keep bringing videos to you, and we're going to do it all the way through the first Saturday in May and beyond. For JK, I'm PTF. We're going to see you next time.